Those towering stone cathedrals hold secrets far beyond their prayers. We are about to decode the hidden language embedded in their walls. By the end of this journey, you will see these ancient structures not as monuments of faith alone, but as intricate maps to spiritual enlightenment. What coded messages did the master masons leave in the labyrinthine floors? Why do monstrous gargoyles guard the sacred space? The answers are carved in plain sight, waiting for those who know how to look. What does a building made of stone and glass have to teach us about the universe? To build something divine, you must first understand the world you are building within. The Gothic age was not a dark void of superstition. It was a crucible of thought, a time when the spiritual and the scientific danced a delicate wager. Beneath the surface of sanctioned faith, rivers of ancient wisdom flowed. Hermetic principles carried from the sands of Alexandria whispered that the universe was a vast, living mirror. Alchemy taught that all matter, from the lowest stone to the highest star, could be transformed and perfected, and from the mystical traditions of Kabbalah came a belief in a hidden architecture to creation, a sacred geometry that underpinned everything. This was the intellectual air breathed by the master builders. Their grand project was initiated by a visionary, Abbot Suger of the Abbey of St. Denis. He looked at the heavy, earthbound Romanesque churches and saw not piety, but spiritual confinement. He envisioned a new kind of structure, one that would use stone and glass not to block out the world, but to channel the divine light directly into the hearts of the faithful. For Suger and those who followed, the construction site was an alchemical laboratory. The raw, base materials of the earth, the rough stone and common sand, were not merely assembled. They were transmuted. Through sacred geometry and immense human effort, the chaotic wilderness of the quarry was transformed into the ordered cosmos of the cathedral. This was not just architecture, it was a spiritual operation. The very act of building was a prayer, a deliberate act of creation meant to replicate the divine order of the heavens here on earth. So before you see a wall, see a transformation. Before you see a window, see a conduit. The foundation of these buildings is not just in the deep-laid stone, but in a profound belief that humanity could, through sacred craft, build a ladder to the stars. This cosmic blueprint was drawn not in ink, but in ratio and line. The master builders spoke a silent language, the language of sacred geometry. They believed the very fabric of the universe was woven from mathematical principles, a divine order that could be captured and expressed through form. The most profound of these principles was the golden ratio, a special proportion found throughout nature, from the spiral of a seashell to the arrangement of petals on a flower. It is a ratio that the human eye finds inherently beautiful and harmonious. The builders did not use this ratio by accident. They encoded it into the very skeleton of their cathedrals. Walk down the central nave of Chartres or Notre Dame. The relationship between the width of the nave and the height of the vaulted ceiling often approaches this perfect proportion. It is a feeling you get more than a measurement you immediately see, a sense of uplifting balance that pulls your gaze heavenward. This is not empty space, it is tuned space, designed to resonate with a hidden order. The same principle guides the spiral of a staircase within a tower, echoing the Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the sum of the two before it. This sequence manifests in the same natural spirals, and the builders replicated this growth pattern in stone, creating a visual rhythm that feels both organic and divinely inspired. Even the placement of the windows and the division of the facades were calculated with this sacred grammar. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? The goal was to build more than a church. They were constructing a model of the universe itself, a microcosm. Every measured arch, every proportioned column, was a deliberate act of mirroring the macrocosm of God's creation. Stepping into a Gothic cathedral was meant to feel like stepping into a perfectly ordered world, a sanctuary that reflected the harmony of the cosmos. This geometry was their prayer made visible, a silent hymn to the mathematical mind they believed shaped all of reality, and if the building itself is a map of the heavens, then the light that fills it becomes its own kind of scripture. But this sacred geometry was not the only code carved into the stone. Look closer at the individual blocks, high on a wall or tucked into a dark corner, and you will find another, more personal language. Scratched into the surface are strange, cryptic marks: a simple comb, a 5-petaled flower, a pair of compasses, or a complex sigil that looks like a secret star. These are the masons' marks, the fingerprints of the anonymous artisans who gave these cathedrals their form. For a long time, historians thought these were merely practical signatures, a way for the master builder to track each stonemason's work and ensure they were paid for the correct number of stones. And while this was partly true, the story runs much deeper. Many of these symbols carry a weight far beyond simple accounting. Think about the world these men lived in. They were custodians of profound, often dangerous, knowledge. Their craft was steeped in esoteric traditions, in the belief that their work was a spiritual act. So when a mason carved his personal symbol into a stone that would be sealed inside a wall for centuries, was he just signing his name, or was he embedding a piece of his own spirit, a protective charm, into the very fabric of the building? Some marks resemble alchemical symbols, perhaps denoting the metaphysical properties assigned to that type of stone. A mark on a limestone block from a specific quarry might have been more than a source identifier. It could have been a code for that stone's role in the alchemical transformation of the entire structure. Walk the labyrinthine floor of Chartres Cathedral and look at the stones in the walls. You will find marks that echo the tools of their trade, the compass and the square. These were not just tools for measuring angles, they were emblems of cosmic order. To carve them was to affirm a sacred principle. Other marks, like intricate knots or labyrinths themselves, seemed to be markers for initiates, a silent signal to fellow craftsmen who understood their layered meanings. These symbols created an invisible web of knowledge throughout the cathedral, a hidden text known only to those who had been taught to read it. The next time you stand before one of these stone giants, remember the hands that shaped it. The cathedral is not a monolith. It is a chorus of individual voices, each leaving a permanent, if cryptic, signature on a project they believed was divinely inspired. They worked in anonymity for a higher purpose, yet they ensured that a trace of their presence, their belief, and their secret knowledge would endure. And if the stones themselves can speak through symbols, then the statues that adorn the outside of the cathedral tell an even more dramatic story. Beneath your feet lies a path of stone, a coiled journey set into the very floor of Chartres Cathedral. This is the labyrinth, an intricate pattern of 11 concentric circles forming a single, winding path over 1,000 feet long. To the casual eye, it might seem an elaborate decoration. But for the medieval pilgrim, it was a profound spiritual technology. For the countless souls who could not undertake the perilous, expensive journey to the Holy Land, the labyrinth offered a pilgrimage in miniature. This was their road to Jerusalem, their path to the divine, compressed into a sacred diagram they could walk with their own 2 feet. The journey begins at the entrance, a deliberate step onto a path that is anything but straight. The walker immediately finds themselves moving not directly toward the center, but in wide, sweeping arcs, sometimes coming agonizingly close to the middle, only to be turned away toward the outer edge. This is the first great lesson of the labyrinth. The path to enlightenment is not a direct line. It is a circuitous route filled with apparent setbacks and confusing turns, mirroring the soul's own difficult journey through life, with all its trials and detours toward God. Each twist represents a challenge overcome, a temptation resisted, a lesson learned. The walk itself becomes a form of moving prayer, a physical meditation on the nature of faith. With every step, the worldly distractions of the outside cathedral fade away. The walker's focus narrows to the path itself, the rhythmic pattern of the stones, the slow, deliberate pace. This repetitive winding motion is believed to have been used to induce an altered state of consciousness, a quieting of the mind that allowed for deep inner reflection and a direct, unmediated experience of the divine. You were not just walking toward a center, you were walking into the center of your own being, and this journey is deeply alchemical. The labyrinth is a perfect symbol for the great work, the alchemical process of transformation. The pilgrim at the start is the base metal, the unrefined soul burdened by the world. The long, winding path is the process of dissolution and purification, where the old self is broken down. The center, the rosette, represents the ultimate goal, the philosopher's stone, the moment of spiritual gold, the perfected soul united with the divine. After a moment of stillness and revelation at the center, the pilgrim then walks the same path back out into the world. This return is crucial. The transformation was not for escape, but for return. You emerge from the labyrinth changed, carrying the peace and clarity from the center back into your daily life. The labyrinth teaches that the entire universe, with all its chaos and complexity, is contained within a sacred, geometric order. And your own spiritual journey, with all its twists and turns, is a vital part of that cosmic pattern. High above the labyrinth's path, the stone itself seems to dissolve into a cascade of colored fire. The stained glass windows of a Gothic cathedral are far more than illustrated Bible stories for the illiterate. They are the final, triumphant stage of the alchemical process we have been following, a deliberate transmutation of mere sunlight into divine substance. Consider the journey of light itself. Outside, the sun is pure, white, and often blinding. It is raw, unrefined energy, but when this light passes through the colored glass, something miraculous happens. It is transformed. The master glaziers were spiritual chemists, and their palette was chosen with profound intentionality. A deep, vibrant crimson does not merely represent the blood of martyrs. In the language of alchemy, this is the color of the rubido, the final stage of the great work. After the soul has been broken down and purified, it achieves a state of spiritual perfection, often symbolized by the red of the philosopher's stone. So when this ruby light streams into the cathedral and falls upon the congregation, it is not just telling a story, it is performing an act, it is bathing the faithful in the luminous energy of completion and enlightenment. Likewise, the profound celestial blues found in the robes of the Virgin Mary or in the backgrounds of creation scenes connect to the sphere of the heavens. This is the color of divine truth, of the celestial realm, a visual echo of the lapis lazuli used by painters to signify the highest spiritual planes. The light that passes through this blue glass carries that heavenly frequency into the sacred space. The entire window composition was a carefully designed filter for consciousness. The complex narratives, the specific placement of saints and prophets, all work together to create a symbolic matrix. Sunlight, passing through this matrix, was believed to be charged with its meaning. It became lux, divine light, as opposed to mere lumen or common daylight. This illuminated wisdom then poured into the nave, quite literally enlightening the soul of every person it touched. The faithful were not just looking at pictures of sacred stories, they were standing inside them, washed in their transformed essence. The stone structure frames the darkness so that this colored light becomes the true architecture, a living, breathing scripture written in emerald, sapphire, and gold. It is the ultimate fulfillment of Abbot Suger's vision, where the material world becomes diaphanous, a fragile vessel for the immaterial divine. And if light could be sanctified in this way, what other invisible energies did the builders seek to harness through the very form of their stone prayers? Look up past the saints and the prophets, and you will find the guardians of the stone. Perched on the high parapets, leering from the rain gutters, are the monstrous forms of gargoyles and grotesques. Their bodies are a menagerie of nightmares, part beast, part human, part demon, frozen in a permanent snarl. The practical explanation is that they were waterspouts designed to channel rainwater away from the delicate masonry. And this is true for the true gargoyles. the ones with a hollow channel running through them, but this simple function is merely the surface of a far deeper mystery. Why would the master builders, in their quest to create a perfect model of the divine cosmos, choose to adorn it with such blatantly pagan and terrifying figures? The answer lies in their role as spiritual guardians. In the esoteric worldview, a sacred space is a zone of concentrated, refined energy. Such a place is vulnerable. It can attract not only the devout, but also negative, chaotic forces that seek to disrupt its harmony. The gargoyles are the sentinels posted at the threshold. Their monstrous appearance is not an accident, it is their weapon. They were believed to act as a spiritual scarecrow, using their fearsome visage to repel evil spirits and malevolent influences before they could cross into the hallowed ground below. Imagine a hostile spirit approaching the cathedral. It sees these formidable beasts staring down, their stone eyes watching, their mouths open in a silent roar. The message is clear: turn back. This is protected territory. They embody the principle that sometimes, to guard the sacred, you must station the terrifying at the gate. But their symbolism cuts even deeper. These figures represent chaos itself, but a chaos that has been captured, chiseled into form, and put to work. Before the cathedral could be a cosmos, an ordered universe, the wild, untamed forces of nature had to be subdued. The gargoyles are the symbols of that conquered chaos. They are the wilderness, the primal fear, the beastly instincts, all now tamed and harnessed in service of the divine. They are a permanent reminder that order does not ignore chaos, it masters it. This leads to the most profound lesson they offer, a lesson about our own inner world. The placement of these beasts on the very fabric of the church forces a confrontation with duality. The sacred space is not a denial of the monstrous, but an integration of it. The same building that points to the heavens with its spires also acknowledges the chthonic, the earthly, the shadow self. The gargoyles tell us that the path to the divine does not require us to pretend the beast within does not exist. Instead, we must recognize it, give it form, and ultimately, put it to work in guarding our own spiritual threshold. They are a stone mirror reflecting the complete human condition, where the potential for both the beast and the angel are forever intertwined. And if these stone guardians protect the space from without, what then of the stories told within, stories that unfold not in glass or stone, but in the very numbers that measure the building itself? The rose window blooms at the cathedral's heart like a stone flower. This magnificent circular window is not merely a feat of engineering or a beautiful image. It is a complex mandala, a cosmic diagram designed to map the entire universe. Its very shape, a perfect circle, represents eternity, the unending cycle of creation and the wholeness of God. But look closer at its structure, and you will see a universe unfolding. The central image, often depicting Christ or the Virgin Mary, acts as the divine source, the unmoved mover from which all of creation emanates. Radiating outward from this center are the concentric circles, each one a different level of existence, from the celestial hierarchies of angels down to the earthly realm. The petals or the radiating spokes are the paths connecting these realms, the channels through which divine energy flows into the world. This is why the Virgin Mary is so often associated with these windows, titled the Rosa Mystica, the mystical rose. She is seen as the perfect vessel, the rose through which divine light entered the material world. In this sacred geometry, she becomes the living mandala herself. This symbolism resonates deeply with esoteric traditions like the Rosicrucians, who later adopted the rose as a central emblem. For them, the philosophical rose represented the unfolding of the soul, its petals opening one by one through stages of secret knowledge and spiritual initiation. The rose concealed at the center of the cross was a symbol of the individual's divine nature blooming from the suffering of the material world. The rose window is this exact same concept rendered in glass and stone. It served as a powerful focal point for contemplation, A medieval monk or a seeker would not just glance at the window, they would meditate upon it. Gazing into its intricate, symmetrical patterns, the mind would quiet. The distracting chaos of the outer world would fall away, and the viewer's consciousness could align itself with the perfect order depicted in the glass. This was a spiritual technology for inner alignment, a way to tune the human soul to the harmony of the cosmos. The light streaming through the rose was not just illuminating the church, it was illuminating the mind, guiding it back along the petaled paths to its own divine center. The window was a gateway, and by passing through it in meditation, one could experience, for a fleeting moment, the unity of all things. Every pillar, every arch, and every step in a Gothic cathedral was a deliberate act of counting on God. The master builders wove a hidden numerical scripture directly into the stone, believing that certain numbers were the very building blocks of creation. They saw the universe not as a random collection of things, but as a divine mathematical equation, and their architecture was their attempt to write that equation in a language everyone could feel. The most sacred of these numbers was 3, representing the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This principle of 3 is everywhere once you learn to look for it. The entire floor plan of a cathedral is a cross, but look at the eastern end, the sanctuary. It is often composed of 3 distinct parts, reflecting the triune nature of God. The facade itself frequently rises in 3 distinct tiers, from the grand portals to the gallery and finally to the twin towers, lifting your eyes and spirit in a threefold ascent toward heaven. This repetition of 3 was not just decorative, it was an incantation in stone, a constant, subtle reminder of the central mystery of their faith. Then there is the number 7, a number vibrating with cosmic significance. Medieval cosmology recognized 7 classical planets. The Church taught of 7 cardinal virtues to cultivate and 7 deadly sins to avoid, and the book of Genesis described a creation completed in 7 days. The builders encoded this complete cycle of spiritual and cosmic order into their work. You might find a staircase with 7 turns, symbolizing the soul's ascent through the 7 planetary spheres toward perfection. A great rose window might be divided into 7 major sections, or a series of 7 chapels might radiate from the ambulatory behind the high altar. Each of these 7s was a silent sermon, mapping the believer's journey through a complete and ordered universe, from the foundation of the world to the pinnacle of their own moral life. Completing this sacred numerical triad is the number 12, the number of foundation and governance. There were 12 tribes of Israel in the Old Testament and 12 apostles in the New. The cathedral, as the New Jerusalem, had to reflect this foundational stability. This is why you often find 12 massive pillars lining the nave, each one not merely holding up the roof, but symbolically representing an apostle, supporting the entire spiritual weight of the church. Sometimes the Great West Door is flanked by 12 carved figures, the 12 kings of Judah or the 12 apostles themselves, acting as the literal pillars of the gateway to salvation. Even the number of panels in a complex stained glass window telling the story of the apostles might be 12, reinforcing the pattern at every scale. Walking through the nave becomes a physical experience of moving through a living, numerical hymn. The rhythm of the arches, the count of the steps, the grouping of the statues, all of it is a carefully composed symphony of sacred numbers. This was their genius. They made theology tangible. You did not just hear about the Trinity, you passed through its threefold arch. You did not just read about the apostles, you stood amidst their 12 stone forms. The entire structure is a mathematical matrix, designed to attune your soul to the divine order it so perfectly mirrors. And if the numbers themselves form a kind of silent music, then the celestial bodies above provided the original score that the builders sought to replicate here on earth. Tucked away among the stone saints and biblical kings, another face watches from the shadows. It is a face made of leaves, with vines sprouting from its mouth and eyes, a visage of living wood carved from cold stone. This is the Green Man, an enigmatic figure that appears with startling frequency in the most sacred Christian spaces. His presence seems like a paradox, a whisper from the ancient forests within the hallowed walls of the church. So who or what is he? Many see in his leafy features the ghost of a much older god, a direct descendant of pagan deities like the Celtic Cernunnos, the horned lord of the forest and the animal kingdom. This figure represented the untamed, fertile power of the natural world, a force that the incoming Christian faith could not simply erase. The builders may have incorporated his image as a way to convert the old beliefs, allowing the local populace to recognize a familiar symbol of nature's life force within the new context of the cathedral. But the Green Man is more than just a pagan holdover. He embodies a universal and essential spiritual truth, the concept of the dying and resurrected God. Just as the forests wither in the winter only to burst forth with new life each spring, the Green Man symbolizes the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. He is the life force itself, constantly consuming itself to be born again. This idea resonates deeply with Christian themes of resurrection and eternal life, making him a powerful, if unorthodox, symbol of hope and regeneration. In the language of alchemy, he finds another layer of meaning. He is a perfect representation of the prima materia, the primitive, chaotic, and vital first matter from which the entire alchemical process of transformation begins. He is the raw, unrefined force of nature that must be worked upon and spiritualized, just as the base materials of the cathedral were transformed into a divine structure. You can find him in many forms. Sometimes he is the foliate head, his face completely covered in thick, carved leaves. Other times he is the disgorging head, spewing a great cascade of vines and foliage from his mouth, as if he is the very source of the world's vegetation. Look for him in unexpected places, not on the main altars, but hidden in the margins. He peers down from the ends of wooden choir stalls, he is carved into the capitals of columns in the cloisters, and he clusters among the roof bosses high above. Southwell Minster in England is a veritable gallery of these figures, their ancient knowing faces a silent testament to a deeper, more integrated worldview. The Green Man challenges the idea of a simple divide between pagan and Christian. He suggests that the builders understood that the divine spirit was present not only in the heavenly realms, but also in the very sap of the living world. He is the stone embodiment of a profound truth, that the cathedral was not built against nature, but as its most sacred and ordered expression. Flanking the grand western entrance, two colossal pillars often stand as silent sentinels. These are far more than structural necessities. They are the architectural embodiment of an ancient and powerful duality. Their design can be traced back through the centuries, past the Gothic master builders, all the way to the legendary Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. The original scriptures describe two great bronze pillars that stood at the temple's porch, one named Jachin and the other Bose. Jachin is often translated to mean he will establish, while Bose signifies in him is strength. But for the esoteric traditions, their names were just the beginning of a profound symbolic language. These two pillars represent the fundamental, opposing forces that structure all of creation. They are the twin pillars of the cosmos itself. On one side, you have the active principle, often associated with the masculine, with solar energy, with expansion and force. This is the pillar of severity, of structure and law. Its counterpart is the passive principle, connected to the feminine, to lunar energy, to contraction and form. This is the pillar of mercy, of compassion and receptivity. Think of the world around you, day and night, hot and cold, giving and receiving. Everything exists in a state of dynamic tension between these two poles. The initiate, the seeker of true wisdom, does not choose one pillar over the other. The path to enlightenment is not found in the safety of one side, but in the precarious, sacred space between them. This is a core teaching in Kabbalah, illustrated by the Tree of Life. The entire diagram is a map of consciousness, and the journey begins by walking the middle path between the pillar of mercy on the right and the pillar of severity on the left. To lean too far toward mercy is to become formless and weak. To lean too far into severity is to become rigid and brittle. True spiritual power is found in the balance. The Gothic builders, steeped in these hidden streams of knowledge, encoded this very principle into the doorways of their cathedrals. When you approach the great west front of a cathedral like Chartres, you are not just walking toward a door. You are symbolically preparing to walk the path between Jachin and Bowes. The two towers that rise on either side, often slightly different in design or decoration, echo this same duality. You must pass through the central portal, the middle path, to enter the unified sacred space within. This symbolism was powerfully carried forward by the Freemasons, who saw themselves as the spiritual descendants of the temple builders. In Masonic lodges, the two pillars are a central feature, reminding every initiate that their work is to balance these opposing forces within their own character. The Gothic Cathedral, therefore, is an open book of stone for those who can read its language. Its entrance is a threshold not just of stone, but of consciousness, inviting you to leave the world of black and white dualities and step into the luminous, balanced unity of the sacred. And if the doorway itself presents a choice of paths, then the journey through the cathedral's interior unfolds as a deliberate stage-by-stage ascent. The stones of the cathedral point not only to heaven but to the stars themselves. These structures were cosmic clocks, their foundations and axes laid down with a celestial precision that rivals any modern observatory. The master builders viewed the sky as another sacred text, and they designed their churches to be in constant, silent dialogue with the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This was not mere decoration, it was a profound integration of cosmic law into the very bones of the building. Consider the basic orientation of nearly every Gothic cathedral. They are almost universally aligned on an east-west axis, with the high altar placed in the east. This is so the first light of the rising sun, the symbol of Christ and resurrection, can flood the sanctuary each morning. But the alignment often goes far deeper than this simple directional rule. At the Cathedral of Amiens in France, a phenomenon known as the green ray occurs. On certain days around the summer and winter solstices, a beam of sunlight passes through a specific piece of colored glass and strikes a precise mark on the floor, a brass plate set into the stone. For a few moments, a luminous green spot, an emerald of pure light, appears in the nave. This is no accident of architecture. It is a deliberate and sophisticated alignment, a calendar marker carved in light. It tells the observer that a celestial threshold has been reached, that the sun has reached its highest or lowest point in its yearly journey. Other cathedrals have their own light-based mysteries. A specific window might be positioned so that the sun's rays illuminate the statue of a particular saint only on that saint's feast day. A shaft of light might travel down the nave at noon on the equinox to touch a specific symbol, perhaps a labyrinth center or a carved rosette, charging it with solar energy for a perfect, fleeting moment. These events transform the building from a static monument into a living, breathing mechanism. It marks sacred time, not just with bells, but with the light of the heavens. The cathedral becomes a grand orrery, a mechanical model of the solar system built on a colossal scale. To stand inside during one of these alignments is to feel a connection to the cosmos that is both intimate and vast. You are not just in a building, you are inside a working instrument, a device designed to harmonize human worship with the eternal rhythms of the universe. This celestial choreography reveals the ultimate ambition of the Gothic vision, to bind earth and heaven into a single, ticking clock of divine creation. Deep within the shadowed crypts of certain cathedrals, a mysterious presence waits. She is the Black Madonna, a statue of the Virgin Mary with skin of ebony or dark brown, her ancient gaze holding secrets the official church rarely acknowledges. To simply call her an aged statue discolored by candle smoke is to miss the profound mystery entirely. Her darkness is intentional, a key to a spiritual truth that runs far deeper than surface piety. Many of these dark Madonnas are found in places once sacred to pre-Christian earth goddesses. In France, the famous Black Madonna of Chartres was venerated in a crypt that previously housed a temple to a Druid goddess. In other locations, she sits where statues of the Egyptian goddess Isis were once worshipped. This is no coincidence. Isis was the Great Mother, the throne of the pharaohs, the weaver of fate, and the holder of profound magic. The early church, in its effort to convert pagan populations, often built directly over these older holy sites, effectively baptizing the local devotion by offering a new Christian face for the same ancient maternal power. The Black Madonna became that face, a bridge between the old world and the new, allowing the veneration of the divine feminine to continue in a new form. Her darkness connects her directly to the fecund, rich soil of the earth itself. This symbolism aligns perfectly with the alchemical process encoded throughout the cathedral. The first stage of the great work was the negrido, the blackening. It was not a stage of evil or despair, but one of primal potential. It represented the fertile black earth, the chaotic first matter from which all life and all transformation begins. It is the state of dissolution, where the old self must break down and return to its essential components before the soul can be purified and reborn. The Black Madonna embodies this negrido. She is the dark, fertile womb of creation, the necessary starting point for any true spiritual rebirth. She represents the divine not as a distant, untouchable light in the heavens, but as an immanent presence within the very soil, within the darkness of the earth and the human soul. This veneration of a hidden, divine feminine wisdom stands in quiet contrast to the more public, patriarchal structure of the medieval church. She represents a stream of esoteric knowledge that was often suppressed by orthodox doctrine, a wisdom that valued intuition, nature, and the transformative power of the shadow self. She is the secret kept in the crypt, the dark mother who reminds us that before we can ascend to the light, we must first acknowledge and bless the fertile darkness from which we came. The cross you see on the altar is only the beginning of its story. Etched into the very ground you walk upon, the Latin cross floor plan of every Gothic cathedral is a profound spiritual blueprint. While it undoubtedly commemorates the crucifixion, its meaning stretches far beyond that single event, mapping the entire cosmos and the human soul. This layout is a deliberate echo of the ancient maxim, as above, so below. The long nave, stretching from the west entrance to the crossing, represents the physical world and the human spine, the central pillar of our being. The transepts, the arms of the cross, reach out to the north and south, symbolizing our own arms extended in both action and receptivity, and the eastern end, the sanctuary holding the high altar, corresponds to the head, the seat of consciousness and divine connection. When you enter the cathedral and walk toward the altar, you are symbolically retracing the path of spiritual ascent, moving from the base of your physical existence upward toward enlightened awareness. This sacred geometry makes the building a macrocosm of you, but the symbolism expands outward, embracing the whole of creation. The 4 points of the cross align with the 4 cardinal directions, each governed by one of the classical elements. The east, the direction of the rising sun, and the altar is linked to air, the realm of intellect and spirit. The south is fire, representing energy, transformation, and will. The west, where you enter, is associated with water, the domain of emotion and the unconscious, and the solid north is earth, symbolizing stability, the body, and the material world. Walking the cross, therefore, is an act of navigating the complete human experience, balancing the elements within yourself while orienting your spirit within the cosmos. This idea of navigating and unlocking is powerfully echoed in another set of crossed symbols, the crossed keys of St. Peter. These are not just a sign of papal authority. In esoteric thought, they represent the keys to the kingdom of heaven, which is not a distant place but a state of consciousness. One key is said to be of gold, unlocking the higher, celestial mysteries. The other is of silver, opening the deeper, intuitive wisdom of the soul. To hold both crossed keys is to possess the integrated knowledge, the balanced power, needed to unlock the great spiritual mysteries encoded in the cathedral itself. The cross in all its forms is the ultimate key, a geometric code showing that the path to the divine is mapped within our own bodies and balanced between the elemental forces of the world. Your journey through the cathedral is a hidden alchemical recipe. From the moment you step into the shadowy nave, you are not just a visitor, you are the raw material in a spiritual laboratory, embarking on the alchemist's great work. This path from the western entrance to the eastern altar is a precise map of transformation, with each stage mirrored in the sacred architecture surrounding you. The first stage is Negredo, the blackening. This is the state of putrefaction, where the unrefined soul, the base metal of your being, must be broken down. The nave, especially in its darker, more cavernous depths, embodies this primal darkness. It is the fertile chaos, the necessary dissolution of your old self before any purification can begin. Here, in the dim light, you confront your own shadow, the parts of yourself that must be acknowledged and integrated. This is not a place of despair, but of potential, the dark earth from which new life will grow. As you move forward, you approach the crossing, bathed in a softer, more diffuse light filtering through the clerestory windows. This transition marks the albedo, the whitening. After the chaos of Negredo comes purification, a washing clean of the soul. The stone around you seems to lighten, the space opens up, and the intricate carvings become clearer. This is the stage of clarification, where the distractions of the ego are washed away, leaving the spirit cleansed and receptive, like silver being refined in a fire. It is a state of lunar purity, a quiet readiness for what comes next. Then you step into the choir or the radiant space before the high altar. A golden light, often from a great east window, pours over you. This is Citronitas, the yellowing, a stage sometimes called the dawning of the solar light. It represents illumination, the first direct experience of divine understanding. The gilded decorations, the warm hues of the stone, the very air seems to shimmer with this golden energy. Your purified spirit, having passed through the darkness and the cleansing, now begins to glow with an inner light, gaining intellectual and spiritual insight. The final and most glorious stage awaits at the sanctuary itself, the heart of the cathedral. Here, you are bathed in the ruby and crimson light of the stained glass. This is the rubedo, the reddening. It is the culmination of the entire process, the creation of the philosopher's stone within your own soul. This is not just a color, it is a state of being, the achievement of spiritual gold and perfect unity with the divine. The raw material that entered the western door has been utterly transmuted. The entire building process was an echo of this internal journey. The rough stone from the quarry, the base matter, was carved and shaped by the masons, just as the soul is shaped by experience. The sand and minerals were melted in fire to become radiant glass, a literal transmutation of earthly substance into divine light. Every material, every color, every step of the architectural journey was a deliberate echo of the alchemist's quest. The cathedral is not merely a building where alchemy was symbolized. It is the great work itself, rendered in stone and light, an eternal invitation to undertake your own transformation. These stone ribs arching through the air are far more than architectural supports. Each flying buttress is a spiritual statement carved in limestone, a physical declaration that the soul can transcend its earthly cage. On a purely practical level, they are a brilliant solution to a physical problem. The immense weight of the vaulted stone ceiling creates a powerful outward thrust, a force that would simply push the high walls over and collapse the entire structure. The flying buttress catches this thrust, channeling it down into the ground through its own elegant form. This engineering miracle is what made the walls of glass possible, replacing heavy, opaque stone with vast, luminous panels of stained glass. But for the master builders, this physical act was a perfect metaphor for a spiritual truth. The soaring interior space of the nave represents the human soul aspiring toward the divine. That soul on its own is burdened by the weight of its own material nature, the outward thrust of worldly concerns and limitations. Left unsupported, it would collapse under this pressure. The flying buttress leaping in from the outside symbolizes the divine grace and support that comes from beyond the self. It is the unseen spiritual force that shores us up, that catches the weight of our struggles and allows our inner space to become vast, luminous, and filled with light. This external skeleton makes the impossible a reality. It defies the apparent logic of stone, allowing walls to become windows. In the same way, spiritual aspiration defies the apparent logic of the material world. It shows us that our limitations are not final, that with the right support, we can transform our heaviest burdens into our greatest sources of illumination. The next time you see a cathedral, look past the main structure to these graceful external arms. They are not an afterthought, they are the essential hidden support that makes the entire miracle of light and space possible, both in the cathedral and within the human spirit. The floor beneath your feet holds a secret blueprint, a geometric genesis drawn not with ink, but with the compass and the square. To understand the cathedral's soul, you must trace the lines hidden in its foundation. The master builders began their work not with a simple sketch, but with a sacred act of geometry, using shapes that were believed to contain the very patterns of creation. One of the most important of these was the vesica piscis, the vessel of the fish. Picture the simple act of drawing two circles of the same size, overlapping so the edge of each one passes through the other's center. The almond-shaped space where they overlap is the vesica. This was not just a geometric curiosity, it was a cosmic symbol of immense power. It represented the intersection of the spiritual and material worlds, the meeting of heaven and earth. Its shape was seen as the fundamental form of the holy mandorla, the aura of light that surrounds Christ and the Virgin Mary in sacred art, but its use was intensely practical. The proportions of this almond shape, its height to its width, gave the builders a fixed divine ratio. They used this ratio to establish the most critical dimensions of the entire cathedral, starting with the width of the nave and the height of the great arches. The entire building, in a very real sense, grew from this single, sacred overlap of two circles. This geometric genesis did not stop there. The pentagram, the five-pointed star, was another crucial tool in their hidden design. Far from the modern associations with the occult, for the medieval mind, the pentagram was a symbol of divine proportion and the microcosm. It represented the human form, with its 5 points corresponding to the head, 2 arms, and 2 legs, and it was intricately linked to the golden ratio. Builders would inscribe a pentagram within a circle, and from its complex web of intersecting lines, they would derive the angles for the walls, the placement of the pillars, and even the slope of the roof. At a cathedral like Cologne, if you could see its floor plan superimposed with these geometric constructions, you would find the entire layout, from the apse to the western towers, governed by this star. Why encode the building with such complex, hidden patterns? The geometry was a form of consecration. By building upon the vesica piscis and the pentagram, the architects were not just ensuring structural stability, they were weaving the fabric of the universe into the very stones. They were creating a space that was, in its essence, a living diagram of God's mind, a physical manifestation of the sacred mathematics that ordered all of creation. Walking across the floor, you are traversing a field of invisible, potent symbols, each step a movement through a hidden map of cosmic truth. Above the grand western portal, a stone universe unfolds in breathtaking detail. This is the tympanum, the semicircular canvas where the master carvers told their most profound stories, and the most common of these is the Last Judgment. We see Christ in majesty seated at the center, often surrounded by the 4 evangelists. To his right, the blessed are ushered peacefully toward the heavenly city. To his left, demons gleefully drag the damned into grotesque torments, their faces contorted in eternal agony. The standard interpretation is clear, a stark warning of divine punishment for sin. But for the initiate, this scene holds a deeper, more personal key. It is not a spectacle of external damnation, but a powerful allegory for the soul's own internal reckoning. This is the moment where you stand at the gate of your own consciousness and weigh the substance of your life. The figure of Christ here is far more than the historical Jesus. He is the solar logos, the divine Son, the central source of cosmic light and reason. He represents your own highest self, your fully awakened consciousness, presiding over the court of your own soul. The scales held by the Archangel Michael are not measuring good deeds against bad in a simple ledger. They are weighing the density of your spiritual achievements, the karma you have generated through your thoughts, words, and actions. Have you lived in a way that added light to the world, or have you contributed to its heaviness? This is the ultimate self-judgment, a moment of absolute, unforgiving clarity where you cannot lie to yourself. So what of the terrifying demons and the agonized souls on the left? They are not monsters sent by an angry God. They are the personified consequences of our own choices, the inner demons of fear, hatred, and ignorance that we have fed and allowed to take root within us. The torment they inflict is the natural result of a life lived out of alignment with the higher self, a state of internal fragmentation and conflict. Being dragged into the mouth of a beast is a vivid symbol for being consumed by your own lower nature. Conversely, the serene figures on the right are not being rewarded by an external force. They are experiencing the natural state of peace and unity that comes from a life lived in harmony with the solar logos within. They have successfully integrated their own darkness, and so they walk freely into the illuminated city, which is not a physical place but a state of enlightened consciousness. The entire tympanum, therefore, is a map of a profound spiritual initiation. Passing through this doorway, literally and symbolically, means accepting this internal process. It is the final stage of the alchemical work, where the soul, having been through the blackening, whitening, and yellowing, now faces the ultimate red test of self-realization. Will you recognize the Christ within as your own true nature, or will you remain identified with the tormented figures cast into the shadows? The stone above the door asks this question every time you cross the threshold, inviting you to become the judge of your own spiritual journey. A profound silence fills the crypt, a stark contrast to the luminous world above. This subterranean chamber, often the oldest part of the cathedral, is far more than a foundation. It is a gateway to the underworld, a place of profound duality where the secrets of death and rebirth are held in the cool, damp air. Here, in the absolute darkness, we find the ultimate expression of the Negrito stage, the primal blackness where all transformation begins. The crypt is a symbolic tomb, a resting place for saints and relics, reminding us of the physical body's return to the earth. Yet, in the very same breath, it is a womb. Its low, vaulted ceilings curve like ribs, enclosing a space of potent, fertile potential. This is the Earth Mother's belly, the dark place where new life is seeded before it can ever hope to reach the light. To descend into the crypt was to embark on the ultimate underworld journey, a voluntary confrontation with the subconscious mind and all its hidden fears and forgotten memories. It was here, in this liminal space, that seekers would engage in rituals meant to strip away the ego, to sit in the void until only the essential self remained. This was the place of contact with chthonic powers, the raw, earthly energies that precede civilization, and with ancestral spirits, the voices of those who walked the path before. Some traditions suggest that certain crypts were used for vision quests or overnight vigils, where the initiate would be sealed in the darkness to face their own inner demons and emerge, reborn, at dawn. This chamber is the hidden root of the entire spiritual structure, the dark, unseen counterpart to the sun-drenched nave. The soaring heights of the cathedral, with its quest for heavenly light, are only possible because of this deep, accepting darkness below. One cannot exist without the other, an eternal dance between the descent into the self and the ascent toward the divine. Its stone spine rises as a bridge between worlds, a silent axis mundi anchoring the earthly realm to the heavens above and the underworld below. This bell tower is far more than a platform for ringing announcements. It is a conduit for the voice of the divine itself. When the bells sound, their vibrations travel down through the stone foundations into the crypt, through the open air where the faithful gather, and upward toward the spire that seems to scratch the sky. In that single resonant note, the entire cosmic axis is set humming, connecting all three levels of existence in a momentary, audible unity. The bell's voice was believed to have a purifying power, a sonic exorcism that cleansed the air of unseen malevolent forces. Its waves were thought to physically disrupt and scatter demonic presences, creating a protective, holy atmosphere over the town and countryside. Each toll marked a sacred hour, slicing the mundane flow of time into segments of prayer and reflection, constantly calling the community back to a spiritual center. But the most profound mystery lies in the nature of the sound itself. In the beginning was the Word, the divine logos that spoke creation into being. The bell's resonant tone was heard as a physical echo of that primordial vibration, a small-scale reenactment of the sound that shaped the cosmos. This concept finds a stunning parallel in Hindu mysticism, with the sacred syllable Om, which is similarly understood as the vibrational essence of the entire universe. The bell, therefore, does not just make noise. It manifests the creative power of God, using its sonic architecture to retune the world, however briefly, back to its original, divine frequency. The tower is the throat and the bell is the voice, a constant reminder that the universe was not just made, but spoken. Flowing through the very veins of the stone giant is a hidden circulatory system. While the gargoyles are the most visible part of this network, they are merely the endpoints, the spouts for a far more intricate design. Beneath the floors and within the walls, a sophisticated labyrinth of channels and drains was engineered to capture rainwater and guide it away from the fragile masonry. This was practical genius, yes, but for the master builders, water was never just water. It was the aqua vitae, the alchemist's water of life. This was not the water you find in a river or a well, but a spiritualized, volatile essence, the universal solvent, and the primordial moisture from which all life was believed to spring. It represented the fluid, unconscious spirit, the substance that could dissolve the old and give birth to the new. The entire water system, therefore, was a hidden alchemical apparatus, a physical representation of the divine energy flowing through creation. This sacred fluid's journey begins the moment a drop lands on the roof, a surface symbolically representing the highest spiritual plane. From there, it is gathered and channeled, moving with purpose. It flows downward, just as divine grace descends from the heavens, and it is directed through the hidden conduits of the building, much like spiritual energy moves through the subtle channels of the human body. Its ultimate release from the mouth of a gargoyle is a powerful act of purification, casting out the chaotic, spent energies, the spiritual refuse from the sacred space. But this cosmic flow is brought to a point of intense focus at two key locations within the cathedral. The first is the holy water stoop, the stone basin at the entrance. As you step inside, you dip your fingers into this blessed water and make the sign of the cross. This is not a simple ritual of cleanliness. It is a symbolic act of preparation, a reminder of your baptism. You are touching the aqua vitae, the primordial water of creation, and anointing yourself with it, marking your own body as a sacred vessel before you enter the divine microcosm. It is the first step in aligning your own inner fluid spirit with the cosmic currents flowing through the building. The journey of water finds its deepest resonance at the baptismal font. Here, the aqua vitae is employed in its most transformative power. In the sacrament of baptism, ordinary water is consecrated, becoming a vehicle for divine grace. When an individual is immersed in or anointed with this water, it symbolizes a profound alchemical death and rebirth. The old, unrefined soul, the base metal of the person, is dissolved in the universal solvent. The person emerges from the water spiritually purified, their soul washed clean and reborn into a new life. The font itself is often octagonal in shape, 8 being the number of regeneration and new beginnings, mirroring the 8 people saved from the great flood in Noah's Ark, another story of cosmic purification by water. Every rivulet traced down a wall, every channel hidden beneath your feet, was a silent sermon. The cathedral breathes with this hidden hydrology, a constant flowing reminder that the grace of the divine is not a static force, but a living, moving current that seeks to cleanse, fill, and transform every soul that steps into its path. Behind the stone and glass lies a hidden network of patrons and protectors. The Knights Templar, an order of warrior monks, emerged from the Crusades with immense wealth and influence, and their shadow falls long across the history of Gothic architecture. Historical records confirm they were prolific builders, financing the construction of churches, castles, and even entire towns across Europe. Their network functioned as an early and highly secure international banking system, moving vast sums of money across continents. This financial power placed them in a unique position to fund the incredibly expensive, decades-long projects that were the great cathedrals. The popular speculation, however, ventures into deeper waters. Legends suggest that during their time stationed at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the Templars did not just guard pilgrims, they excavated beneath the ruins of Solomon's temple. What they allegedly discovered there was not merely gold, but something far more valuable, a cache of ancient knowledge. This was said to include lost texts of esoteric wisdom, perhaps early Kabbalistic scrolls or Hermetic principles that revealed the sacred geometry underpinning creation. This knowledge, the theory goes, did not align with the orthodox doctrines of the Church, so the Templars and the guilds of Masons they patronized became the guardians of a hidden stream of thought. They chose to encode this dangerous wisdom not in books that could be burned, but in the silent, permanent language of architecture. The cathedral, therefore, becomes a vast library in stone, its proportions and symbols preserving a heretical science of the soul. Look at the sudden, revolutionary flourish of Gothic design that appears almost out of nowhere in the 12th century. Could this architectural Big Bang be the result of a sudden infusion of lost knowledge, a blueprint recovered from the East and translated into French limestone? The Templars' own churches often featured round naves, echoing the design of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, a clear architectural link to their experiences in the Holy Land. Their patronage of Mason guilds provided the perfect conduit for this transfer. The master builders, already steeped in their own craft mysteries, would have been the ideal vessels to receive and physically manifest these complex ideas. They worked in the shadow of their powerful patrons, carving a new vision of the divine into the very fabric of society, a vision that balanced the cross with the compass, faith with a hidden gnosis. This secret partnership between warrior and artisan may have been one of history's most profound collaborations, giving form to a spiritual rebellion that has whispered from the stones for centuries. At the end of the labyrinth's twisting path, you find the altar. This is the still point, the unmoving heart of the entire cathedral's symbolic body, the fixed center around which the spiritual dance of transformation revolves. Its placement is no accident of design. Just as the labyrinth on the floor leads the pilgrim on a winding journey to a central point of revelation, the architectural journey through the nave leads you directly to this sacred table. It is the culmination of the entire alchemical process we have traced from the dark western door. Here, in this hallowed space, the long work of inner purification reaches its ultimate goal. The materials chosen for the altar are as significant as its position. It is often hewn from a single, massive block of stone, a specific type like marble or limestone selected for its purity and durability. In the language of alchemy, this is not just any stone. It is the physical representation of the philosopher's stone itself, that perfected, unchanging substance that is both the agent and the result of the great work. It is the stable foundation upon which the final, miraculous transmutation occurs. This is the table where the ultimate alchemical wedding is consecrated, the sacred marriage of spirit and matter. This union is ritually enacted during the ceremony of the Eucharist. The bread and wine, the common substances of the earth, are seen as being transmuted into the divine essence of spirit. This is not merely a symbolic meal, it is the physical enactment of a cosmic principle, the moment when the base materials of the world are revealed to be already divine. The altar is the fixed point where heaven and earth truly meet, where the promise of the entire cathedral, that humanity can build a ladder to the stars, is fulfilled in a moment of silent, sacred grace. These stone secrets did not remain locked in the Middle Ages. They erupted into our modern world through the pages of international bestsellers, transforming public perception of these ancient buildings overnight. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code acted as a cultural detonator, introducing millions to the idea that Gothic cathedrals were not simply houses of worship, but intricate puzzle boxes hiding explosive truths. The novel's gripping premise, that a secret history of the Holy Grail and a bloodline of Christ was encoded in the art and architecture of places like Rosslyn Chapel, was a masterclass in blending fact with fiction. It made people look at the stones with new, questioning eyes, but it is crucial to separate the compelling narrative from the historical record. The Da Vinci Code was a work of fiction, a thrilling story built upon a foundation laid by earlier books like Holy Blood, Holy Grail. That earlier work presented itself as non-fiction, proposing a theory that Jesus survived the crucifixion, married Mary Magdalene, and that their descendants became the Merovingian bloodline in France, protected by a secret society like the Priory of Sion. While this theory has been widely debunked by historians and scholars for its lack of credible evidence, its power lies in its appeal to our desire for a hidden history, a story running just beneath the surface of the one we are told. These books, regardless of their factual accuracy, performed an invaluable service. They reignited a global conversation about the possibility of lost knowledge and symbolic codes embedded in sacred architecture. They forced us to ask, what if the official story is incomplete? This cultural moment opened a door for more serious researchers and modern esoteric groups to step into the light. Today, organizations rooted in traditions like Rosicrucianism and ceremonial magic, alongside independent researchers in fields like archaeoacoustics and geometric analysis, continue to study these cathedrals with fresh tools and ancient intent. They are not looking for a literal bloodline, but for a lineage of wisdom. They use laser scanners to map the precise sacred geometry we discussed, revealing deviations from perfect symmetry that may hold intentional, esoteric meaning. They study the acoustic properties of the nave, testing whether certain chant frequencies were designed to induce meditative states. They view the cathedral as a living repository, a single, complex organism designed to facilitate spiritual transformation. The real treasure hidden in the stone is not a dusty relic or a secret document, but an operating system for consciousness itself, a technology built to guide the human soul through its own alchemical awakening. The modern seeker, armed with both intuition and technology, continues the work of the master builders, not by carving new stones, but by learning to read the magnificent, silent text they left behind. These stone giants are not monuments to a dead faith, but a living library of the soul. As we step back from the shadowy aisles and radiant choirs, the full picture comes into focus. The Gothic Cathedral is perhaps the most profound and complex spiritual text ever written, a book whose pages are made of stone, light, and sacred geometry. It stands as a magnificent testament to a time when art, science, and spirituality were not separate paths, but a single, unified quest for truth. The master builders did not see a division between the engineer's compass and the mystic's vision. For them, to measure an angle was to contemplate the mind of God, and to set a stone was to participate in the ongoing creation of the universe. This integrated vision is their greatest gift to us. The hidden symbols we have explored are not mere decorations or forgotten codes. They are a perpetual invitation, an eternal call to a personal quest. The real treasure map does not lead to a chest of gold, but to the gold of spiritual enlightenment hidden within our own awareness. It guides us through the labyrinth of our own experiences, challenges us to balance our inner pillars, and invites us to transmute our own base nature into something luminous. So the next time you stand before one of these ancient structures, or even simply recall their image, listen closely. What subtle secrets have you sensed whispering from the stone? What symbol or story resonated most deeply with your own journey? Share your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments below. Let us continue this exploration together. And if you are drawn to these hidden realms of history and spirit, be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries that shape our world.